Hey guys, it's Andrew from One Plus Armor here, and today we're going to give you a quick rundown on the End Times Thanquol book. I do have a bit of a cold, if you can't tell by my voice, so hopefully you guys can all hear what I'm saying, and hopefully you can just bear with me here. Anyway, so this is the newest End Times book. It came out, I think, right after Christmas, beginning of January. And this one goes over what the Skaven are up to. So this is book 4 in the End Time series. The world's still falling apart. And yeah, this one focuses mostly on the Skaven. The dwarves and lizardmen are featured heavily in this one as well. And also the Chaos Legions. So, just like the other End Times books, there's a book 1 and a book 2 that you can't see because of the light glare. So we'll just get those out. And just as before, all the other 3 at least, book 1 is all fluff and the story of what goes on and why certain things are happening. Like I said, this one focuses a lot on the Skaven. And like the others, there's tons of cool new art. This guy, I think he's a grace here. To be honest, I don't know much about the Skaven fluff, apart from what I've read so far in here. More great, battle shots. People playing through. So this one, I guess the Skaven are taking out some lazy lizardmen. Yeah, another great book. I'm about halfway through this one. Here's a cool shot. So, big shield wall of dwarves fighting off this endless tide of Skaven. Really cool stuff. Anyways, so I'm about halfway through this one. The writing in this is really tight. I've been told by a couple people that they've been getting the Black Library writers to actually do these books, so the quality of the writings there, it really shows through. They do these again, which is great. I love these 2-page spreads. So basically what it is every time it gets to a point in the story where a battle's going to take place, they do these 2-page spreads before. And they just go over sort of like the big named units and characters that are taking place in this one. So, what's this guy? Icket Hackflay and the Iron Skins. So, just like neat, unique little units that are all taking place. And then on this side here, they'll go through every unit and all the characters that take place. So, if you do have a big model collection and you want to recreate these battles, this is an awesome way to do it. And they do it for each team, so I guess here they're fighting, Skarsnik, cool. So the Night Goblins are fighting against the Skaven. Yeah. So anyways, really cool stuff. Not much else to say really, if you're into the fluff, these books are great. If you're more of a gamey tournament type player, then maybe you won't get too much out of book 1 of these End Times, but you will be looking at book 2. So book 2 is the rules book, I guess. So this one on the cover is the new Thanquol, title character of this End Time series, on his Mount Bone Ripper, which is a giant mutated crazy looking rat ogre. So anyways, we'll get right into it. Introducing how to use this book with your End Times games. That's cool. So then there's Thanquol narrative battles. So this just tells you how to use the scenarios that are located in this book. Because once again, at the back, at the end, the last chapter has a bunch of scenarios that are specific to what goes on in the story, and you can recreate those. And there's different objectives and ways to play the game, which is always nice. It's always nice to switch it up from the main 6 out of the big rule book. So anyways, here's the new rules. The first one is Realms of the Lizardmen. So this is just a scenery rules on how to play battles in jungles, in Lustria, I guess, which is the not Amazon of the Warhammer world. Basically, it's just like how you treat jungles, new dangerous terrain charts, or mysterious terrain charts for like jungles and stuff. Certain things can happen, so like monsters can rush out of the forest and attack you, or you can lose guys in quicksand, and like little themey things like that, which is really cool. Now this one I'm really impressed by. So if you guys may know, I guess they started this about 2 years ago. They would release iPad campaigns, and it was a way to play a series of games and have them all linked together. And there was like a whole system of you buy stratagems and stuff, and depending on what you picked and your opponent picked, it would you would compare that on a grid, and that would be what game you guys would play. And there's new scenarios and stuff for that as well. So basically what they've done is they've finally given it to us in print version, because before you could only get that on iTunes, or iTunes, iBooks, same thing. And it was only available to people with like something like an iPad. So now you can do this yourself, and it just goes through all the ways. So like here's all the stratagems you can pick, and the different this one's one already made up, so if you want to play through that, it's already done for you, but it's all here. And then you just how you play through it. It's really cool. If you're into like campaign play, or you and a couple buddies have like a weekend to kill and want to throw down some games, this is an awesome thing to do. So the main chapter 2 is, let's see if we can get a zoom up shot here. The new armies and units. So this is one probably most people are going to be interested in. Basically, the new guys on the block for this release. And most of my release got like really cool new models. So I'm going to go over, a couple. The big ones, basically Thanquol, and you'll see the other guys in a second. So this is Thanquol. He's a 650 point monster. He's got strength 6, toughness 5. He's got 8 wounds. He's initiative 5 with 6 attacks. He's only leadership 7, and he has weapon skill 4. He's like a leader of one of the clans, or he's like a high up or something, I forget. So he can be included in a Skaven army, and he counts as a Lord choice. So before Thanquol and Bone Ripper were separate models. Now, continuing on with the theme of combining, multiple units into one, Thanquol and Bone Ripper count as one. That's why they got all their things together. They have an armor save of 6, not that great. And they had to put this down, but you can't take Thanquol and Bone Ripper from the Skaven book and Thanquol and Bone Ripper from the End Times book. It's one or the other, which would be kind of funny if someone tried to pull that. Anyways, he's a level 4 wizard. He uses spells from the... He uses Skaven spells, so he can choose Ruin or Plague. And he can do it in any combination. So he can take a couple from Ruin and a couple from Plague. And he can always choose to take the Dreaded 13th, which is the most annoying spell I've ever seen. I'll get you a close-up here of his stats as I continue on. Anyways, he has equipment, Only one thing, warp fire projectors, which I'll get into once I go over the next unit. And he can replace those with warp fire braziers, which are down here. So what they do is they're a close combat weapon. They give Thanquol +1 strength in close combat. He also gets the flaming attacks rule, the multiple wounds D3 rule, storm of attacks, which is a special rule for this, warp fumes, which is also a special rule for this, and warp stone weapon. So what all these things are: so storm of attacks. A model equipped with the warp fire braziers can re-roll all failed to wound rolls in the close combat phase, including impact hits and stomps. That's pretty crazy. Being able to, basically have a way to reliably get wounds and attacks through with this guy is pretty beefy. The next one is warp fumes. At the beginning of any round of close combat in which a model is equipped with warp fire braziers, all models, friend or foe, in base contact with the model must pass a toughness test or suffer a single wound with no armor saves allowed. And that's super gross. If you charge that at a block of demigriffs or something, or even just regular cav, I guess would be more better. They have to pass toughness tests, or basically they're just straight up dead. Now, I believe you guys are probably going to call me out on this. Really, I don't remember, but I think one of the Skaven lores has a spell that reduces toughness. Correct me if I'm wrong there, guys. I really don't know Skaven that well. But, if you pair that up with this, if that actually even exists, it's pretty gross. So continuing on with his special rules, he's a large target. Kind of obvious there. He causes terror, and he's unbreakable. So you don't really have to worry about losing combat with this guy, because he's not going anywhere. He's got a 4-up ward save. So if he's equipped with warp fire projectors, he can make 2 attacks with them in the shooting phase instead of the normal one. And you can direct each shot at a different target if you wish, which is pretty cool. In addition, he also re-rolls all failed to wound rolls when shooting with this weapon. So that's pretty gross. Basically, he gets a shooting attack that he can, fire at different units. Now, Thanquol is a known warpstone addict, and he has the special rule, warpstone addiction. Thanquol does not suffer a wound if the result of a warpstone generated power dice is a roll of a 1. Again, sorry about this, guys. I have no idea what that means. I assume that the Skaven players that I play, when they do that warpstone thing, if they roll a 1, they take a wound. Good to know. And then Thanquol has a couple special items. So he's got the Staff of the Horned Rat. It's an arcane item, and the bearer adds +1 to any result. Any casting roll for a spell from the Skaven spells of Ruin or Plague. So basically he adds +1 to his casting rolls. Neat. Warpstone Amulet. It's a talisman. You roll a d6 at the start of each of the controlling player's turns. On a roll of a 5+, the bearer recovers 1 wound that was lost previously in battle. That's pretty cool. So anyway, anytime you can bring back wounds on hurt characters and stuff is really good. Not many armies have access to that unless you got Laurel Life or something. Then the last one is Warpstone tokens. So Thanquol starts the battle with d6 +2 Warpstone tokens. And that tells you to reference the Skaven book for info on what that is. I think all it is every time you cast a spell, you could throw down a Warpstone token, and it's like an extra d6 for your casting or something. Some shenanigans like that. So next up, okay. So one of the new releases was the Vermin Lords. So basically these are Skaven demons of the Horned Rat. And there's a new kit that came out, and there's a bunch of them. So I'm not really going to go into details on these guys. They're basically buffed up. Not as good as Demon Prince, but Demon Princes. Some of them got cool rules. Most of them are all wizards. They'll have sort of their own unique ways to fight. Basically, they represent the great clans of the Skaven. So there's a warrior guy, a ninja guy, a plague guy, and a wizard guy. And then the last one is named like special character version. He's sort of the leader of all of them, which is this Lord Screech Vermin King guy. They actually play a huge part in the story so far. They're sort of pulling all the strings of the Skaven and making them really do all the bad shit they're doing right now. I think we mentioned in the last one that they were talking about how the Skaven overran Tilia and Estelia, which is not Spain and not Italy in the Warhammer world. And then after that, they sort of don't know what they should be doing. So these guys roll in and start sort of pulling the puppet master strings. They're all pretty cool. Not great stat lines. Like, I guess I'll go over this guy. It's basically the same for everybody, I believe. Yeah. So they're movement 8, weapon skill 8, ballistic skill 4, strength, toughness, and wounds of 6, initiative 10, 5 attacks, leadership 8. They're immune to psych. They have the large target special rule, and they cause terror. They all have a 5-up ward save, and they all have demonic attacks. Basically means all their attacks are magical, and anything. I thought they had that. Maybe not. Alright, don't mind me. I was going to say, I think anything that hurts demons. Oh, yeah, okay. Alright. Rat demon. So, counts as a demon. Anything that hurts demons or is affected by them, such as Lore of Light spells, affects these guys as well. Anyways, blah blah blah, they're cool. Alright, here's the guys that I want to go over, because they're crazy. So, Storm Fiends. These are the new Rat Ogre models. Let's try to get a close-up for you. That's the wrong way. So here's one of them. I guess the internet has dubbed these guys whatever those new Ultramarines in Space Marines in Space Marine suits. I forget the name at the moment, but I guess people have drawn a likeness to them. Basically the Rat Ogres that have been juiced right up, and then had big armor plates and weapons strapped to them, and they just go freaking crazy and kill everybody. So these guys clock in at 85 points apiece. Their movement 6, weapon skill 4, ballistic skill 3. They have a strength of 5 and a toughness of 4. They have 4 wounds each. Their initiative 5, which is really quick for a monstrous infantry type character. 4 attacks and leadership 7. They come with light armor, or something called Warpstone Laced Armor if the model is equipped with a Doomflare Gauntlet or Shock Gauntlets, which I'll go into eventually. They all have upgrades that they can take. So, the next thing for their equipment is Skaven equipment, Skaven weapons of the end times. So each model in a unit of Storm Fiends must be given one of the following Skaven weapons. Note that the unit can take the weapons in any combination. There's no restriction on how many or how few of each can be taken, and they do not cost any additional points. So they can take things called Doomflare Gauntlets, Grinder Fists, Rattling Cannons, Shock Gauntlets, Warp Fire Projectors, and Wind Launchers. Before I go into those weapons, I'll go into the rest of their special rules. So, big and bulky. Storm Fiends cannot fire on the march and light troop rules that normally apply to units with the Skirmisher's special rule. Oh, that's right. These guys are Skirmishers. So they cause fear and they have the Skirmisher special rule. But because they're so huge and gross. They can't move and shoot. Sorry, they can't march and shoot. Then the double the death. I have no idea what this is. Storm Fiends equipped with the Doomflayer Gauntlets, Grinder Fist, or Shock Gauntlets. Reroll all failed 2 wound rolls in close combat phase, including impact hits and stomps. Storm Fiends equipped with the Rattling Cannon, Warp Fire Projectors, or Wind Launchers. Reroll all failed 2 wound rolls when shooting with these weapons. So that's really gross. Basically, all the attacks that they do are more reliable, because anytime you get rerolls is great. The last one is Warpstone Laced Armor. So, Storm Fiends equipped with Doomflayer Gauntlets or Shock Gauntlets have Warpstone Laced Armor. That gives them a 4+ armor save, as opposed to the light armor that has, so 6 up. If a unit of Storm Fiends includes one or more model with Warpstone Laced Armor, when armor saves are taken, then use their armor save of 4+ for all the wounds. Excuse me. However, any wounds that are not saved must be applied to models with Warpstone Laced Armor before they're being applied to other models with just the light armor. This creates a gap in the unit. Move a model up from the back rank to fill the gap. If the unit consists of only a single rank, close the gap by moving the remaining model sideways. Basically just tells you how to... You gotta kill the Warpstone Laced Armor guys first. Then after they're dead, the wounds go on the other dudes first. Alright. So, here's what makes these guys gross as opposed to just manageable. The Skaven weapons of the end times. I'm going to go over all these, and they're pretty sweet. They make these guys really worth it, for the most part. So first up, we got the Doomflayer Gauntlets. These are a close combat weapon. They give the model +2 to his strength, and the Whirling Doom special rule. So what Whirling Doom is a model with Doomflayer Gauntlets has impact hits D3. So already, you know, it's great you get +2 strength, but then all of a sudden you're also getting impact hits when you charge. That's ridiculous. Other than that, not much to say. The next one up is Wind Launchers. So this is a shooting weapon. They're fired as a single stone thrower with the following profile. No strength. They have a range of 6 to 24, so I assume it shoots the small blast. They have special rules: Plague Wind, Slow to Fire, Warpstone Weapon, and Wild Misfire. So what Plague Wind does is Wind Launchers do not have a strength characteristic. Instead, all models under the template suffer a single wound on a d6 roll of a 4+, regardless of their toughness. Here's the kicker though, with no armor saves allowed. So this is a pretty good way of dealing with, cavalry buses and blocks. The next one is Warpstone Weapon. So all attacks made by Warpstone weapons count as magical. And then Wild Misfire. So do not roll on the Stone Thrower Misfire chart. If the Wind Launchers misfire, instead the template for the attack scatters 2d6 in the direction shown on the scatter dice. If a hit is rolled on the scatter dice, use the small arrow on the hit symbol to determine the direction of the scatter. Sorry, just need a little bit of a drink there. Next up is Grinder Fists. Great name, by the way. So these are a close combat weapon that have a strength of 5. They have the Tunneler special rule, the Warp Strike special rule, and their Warpstone weapon, like the other one. So I'll do Warp Strike first because it's shorter. So in close combat phase, the model with this rule does not roll to hit. He inflicts D3 automatic hits instead. So that's pretty gross. I mean, you always hit with these weapons, and they're strength 5. Pretty crazy. But the main reason to take this thing is the Tunneler special rule. So, let's get right into it. A unit that contains a model with the Grinder Fists is not deployed at the beginning of the game, but instead uses the following rules during deployment. During deployment, but before scouts are set up, place a tunnel marker anywhere on the battlefield that is not impassable terrain. A coin is ideal for this. At the beginning of your second turn, roll a dice. On a 2+, that unit arrives. On a roll of a 1, it arrives at the start of your next turn instead. So this is already better than, say, like Beastman Ambush or Tomb King's Buried Under the Sands, because you're guaranteed to get the unit you want when you need it. Or, I guess not so much when you need it, but it's always going to come. When the unit arrives, roll for scatter using a scatter dice and an artillery dice. If you roll a misfire, the unit is delayed and will instead arrive at the beginning of your next turn. If the marker scatters into impassable terrain or a friendly unit, reduce the scatter distance by the minimum required, so that is not the case. Basically, if you guys play 40k, this is how Space Marine drop pods work. They land where you want it, and if you scatter onto dangerous terrain or anything, you just reduce the distance until you're not. Okay. Once the final position of the marker is established, place the unit so that a model with the grounder fist is touching the marker. The unit can face any direction and could act normally this turn, including declaring a charge, shooting, or, yeah, I guess that's it. A unit having arrived on the battlefield in this fashion does not count as having moved for the purposes of shooting. Retarded. If the center of the marker is under an enemy unit when the grounder fist arrives, you should instead place the emerging unit as though it had charged the front of the enemy unit. It will fight in close combat phase, but does not count as having charged for the purpose of impact hits, combat results, etc. If it is impossible to deploy the unit for any reason, the unit does not emerge and will instead arrive at the beginning of your following turn using the rules above. So, these guys are already beefy. Their stat lines are great. They have access to awesome weapons, and now all of a sudden, you can have them deployed, behind enemy lines, ready to rock and roll and cause a huge amount of damage. Just the psychological impact of knowing this is going to come really is going to affect the way people deploy their own armies, and it's going to really screw up people's game plans. I think this rule is great on a great unit, and I really don't look forward to having to face these guys, but, it's pretty crazy. It's kind of fluffy too, tunneling scavenge and whatnot. Anyways, we'll get on to the next weapons. So the shock gauntlets. They're just close combat weapon. They have a strength +1, but they have something called warp lightning discharge. So a model with shock gauntlets inflicts D3 hits rather than 1 when making a stomp. Attacks made by this model with shock gauntlets ignore armor save. Again, another armor save ignoring attack. Not that great. It only adds the +1 strength. I guess if you're hoping to get more through stomps than actual attacks, it's pretty cool, and anything that ignores armor is pretty devastating to a lot of armies, such as the dwarves. So anyways, next up is the rattling cannon. This one's another wallow text rule thing. So it's got a range of 18. It's actually this guy right here, with his chain guns and the one in his chest for whatever reason. Anyways, it's a range 18, strength of 5. It has armor piercing, hot warp lead, multiple shots, 3d6. 3d6. Ridiculous. Quick to fire, warpstone weapon, and wildfire. So, hot warp lead. Warp lead cannons do not suffer any 2-hit penalties for firing at long range or firing multiple shots. So, that's pretty good, because they don't really have that great of a ballistic skill, only ballistic skill 3. So they're normally hitting on 3s if standing still. This way, they're hitting on 4s if standing still. This way, if they do that, they don't have to worry about long range or shooting these 3d6 shots. Warpstone weapon, magical attacks. Wildfire. So each 2-hit roll of a 1 Each hit roll result of a 1 inflicts 1 hit on the closest friendly unit in the firing unit's front arc that is within range instead of the target unit. If there's no eligible friendly units, then the attacks are missed. This is kind of funny. It's one of those weird fluffy rules, I guess. Again, you know, the Brad Ogre just goes ballistic with these chain guns and shoots randomly. Game-wise, though, it's kind of... I think it's going to be kind of a moot point because most likely they'll be trying to tunnel in behind enemy lines and then just opening up with this. So really there probably won't be too many friendly units that will get hit by this. So really it's like, who cares? But whatever. That's all the rules for these chain guns. Pretty crazy. You know, anything that's strength 5, armor piercing, so it's already taking 3 off your save. Pretty gross. Anyways, the last one is the warp fire projectors, and these are the ones that Thanquol and Bone Ripper can take as well. So they're fired as a single fire thrower. Place a template touching any of the model's barrels. Warp fire projectors have the following profile: range nothing because it's a template. Strength 5. Special rules: flaming attacks, multiple wounds D3, move or fire, quick to fire. Warp stone weapon, wildly off target. So, their magical attacks and wildly off target is do not roll on the black powder misfire chart. If the warp fire projector misses, instead the weapon inflicts D6 automatic hits on the closest friendly unit in the firing unit's front arc that is within 12 inches. If there is no eligible friendly units, the warp fire projector simply does not fire this turn. So, one of the cool things about this and the other one, the wind launchers, is even though they use the rules for firing war machines, misfires really don't do anything to them. So, you know, you don't have to worry about stuff blowing up your own guys, which, kind of cool. Really makes them gross, though. Like, I think you're going to see a lot of these guys. Depending on the build, they do come out of your rare allowance, and that's already a really tightly contested spot in a Skaven army because of stuff like the Warp Lightning Cannon and what's the big ugly guy? The A-Bomb, Hell Pit Abomination. And these guys clock in at 85 points apiece, and the unit size is 3+. So already you gotta dump, you know, points on these guys, and you really can't have everything you want if you want to fit these guys in. So, you know, the couple of Skaven guys I've been talking to basically said, these guys are great, but it's, do I take my 2 Hell Pits and a Warp Lightning Cannon, or do I drop my Hell Pits to fit in a unit of these guys all tooled up? Like, it really makes you pick, and that's kind of cool, because they're considering it, right? So these units are still viable, but now you got options instead of, like, seeing the same army coming out every time. Now it's like, oh, did you bring the Storm Fiends? Oh, did you bring those Hell Pits? You know, anytime there's a unit that is in the same spot as someone else and you're trying to figure out, you know, should I take this or this, and they're both viable choices, I think that's really good list writing. Or, yeah, unit writing. Anyway, so moving on. That's my little rant about that. Is Ungrim. So he's in here. He's the dwarf Slayer King, and he also becomes the incarnate of fire. Not much to say about that. You know, basically a slightly better stat line. He's got all the same magic items, and he has like a 2-up ward against flaming, and like a bound fire. Yeah, he has a bound magic missile. It's kind of cool, like, as far as Dwarf Lords go, this guy's pretty awesome. Probably not as good as, like, a Custom Lord still, just because he's not that defendable, but I don't know, whatever. I won't get into that, really. Then they had some new battle scrolls. So, same as what we've seen as downloadable things before. nothing much. And then last thing, so last chapter of the book is, of course, the new scenarios. So these just outline, the main battles that take place in this Thanquol book. Not much to say about them. They're all, cool new ways to play the game, different deployments, stuff like that. Same thing we've seen before, yet different. All the same. And yeah, that's it. That's the book. It's up there. It's on par with the rest of the books that have been released in this series. I kind of like this one just because I do have sort of a passing interest on the dwarf armies. I do have my chaos dwarves, and they're never going to get a mention in these end times, so hearing about the regular dwarves is good enough for me, I suppose. It's nice to finally see what the Lizardmen have been up to. They've been absent from the first 3 books, and this time they get a lot of screen time in this. One of the other cool things is for you chaos people, this one also talks about Archaon and his he started his invasion on the old world. So it's basically what he's doing, bumming around up north. And yeah, that's about it. So hopefully you guys got some insight on this book. If you're into the fluff, it's worth picking up. If you're a Skaven player, it's worth picking up, but I don't know. If you're not sort of into this, if you're not digging the end times, then maybe this will be a pass for you, but I like it. I like the story so far. I'm going to keep picking these books up until the end. And yeah, so thanks for watching. As always, check out our sister group, the Can't Hammer Podcast, and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. It's the best way to get in contact with us if you ever want to. We love hearing feedback. If you have any requests, want to see certain units gone over, or different missions played, we will be doing some ETC content. I know someone asked for that before in a previous one of our videos comment sections. So we are signed up for the Can't Hammer boys are running a ETC team tournament, I think in April. So we're going to be shooting some videos for that, going over some of the ways to play ETC Hammer, and so yeah, we'll do some of that. We might try some Swedish comp stuff too. I think we've been talking about it. Just give you guys something different than our regular battle reports all the time. Anyways, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.